Okay, this is my tutorial for face masks. This is regular cotton. It's quilting cotton. It's actually a really nice fabric. It's Amy Butler. Or no, it's not. It's Heather Bailey. Sorry. But a good quality fabric is the best one you can use because it's going to have a better weave and it's going to be more breathable and do everything you need it to do. So when you're buying, if you're buying fabric, don't be chintzy on it or use, this is something I bought off somebody. And I liked it at the time, but I've kind of fallen out of love with it, so I'm happy to go ahead and use it to make face masks. The key thing about this is that there's no, with my cutting is that I have very little fabric waste. To make a 3 face masks, you only really need, you'll need 3/4 of a yard, which is about, I think 65 centimeters or 70 centimeters, and then you'll need, yeah, and then that's 65 centimeters, I think, so about 3/4 of a meter as well. So basically I'm going to line up my fabric. You can see it's a little bumpy down here. Doesn't really matter, so I'll cut. If you don't have a cutting mat and you don't have a ruler and you don't have a rotary cutter, you can do this without that. You just have to draw lines with a regular ruler and then cut with scissors. So I'm going to cut this at, this is my strip. So I want my face masks are going to be, my cut pieces are going to be 7.5 by 7. So this is, what this allows me to do is that the fabric runs over to just past 22. So if I cut this at 7.5, I'm going to cut it a little bigger so I can trim off this wonky edge. So I'll cut it at 8. Then I can cut one strip right here. And then once I do that, then I have this, I can cut this down, what we call sub-cutting it. So I'll cut it 2 times and then I'll trim off my folded edge and I'll trim off my selvage, and I will have enough to make 3 face masks here. Now, if you're making them for a hospital, I've heard that you're supposed to use 2 different fabrics, so this might not be the best idea, but you can also just do 2 different fabrics and make 6, or just cut what you need. But this is, I really wanted something easy so I could cut for my fabrics. Now, my strips that I use on the side to make the ties are going to be width of fabric, which is from one selvage edge to the other selvage edge, which is important because that means that you don't get fraying and you shouldn't have to hem them. So that is important because I was looking for a way for the sewing time to be cut down as much as possible. So each strip is 1.5 inches, so I'll just measure 1.5 here. I won't move my fabric, that edge is nice and straight, so I don't have to give myself any extra. So normally I would cut 3, enough for 3 masks, since I just cut that, but since I'm giving you a tutorial, I'm only going to cut what I need right now, just to show you exactly what I need. So I need 2 strips. There's my 2 strips, so that's good for now. I'll put that out of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you how to subcut this in case you are making multiple masks. The first thing I want to do is find my shorter edge on my selvage. This is shorter, so I want to make sure I get my selvage cut off. Move that out of the way. So I'll get my ruler. And as you see, I didn't even press this fabric because I wanted this to be as simple as possible. So I'm not pressing, not doing anything that you wouldn't need to do. And I'm just going to line that up as best I can and cut that straight right there. So then I'm going to come down here and measure. But before I subcut this, let me go ahead and trim off this wonky side. So I'll make this exactly 7.5. So that's always a fun process. So 7.5. Okay. Measure twice, cut once. Alright, there we go. So that's 7.5, and I've got this, so I've got it lined up nicely so that I can cut down. So I'll cut at 7 and 14 and then 21. I'll trim off the edge there. So right here at 7, this little subcut. So that gives me 2 pieces. You can see that. So I'll keep going over here to 14. And then over to 21. I will keep cutting there. And you can see I have a little bit extra fabric. It depends on the fabric. Sometimes you get extra, sometimes you don't. It's just a tiny bit of extra fabric. That is big enough that I can save it, so I will go ahead and save that. But you have minimal fabric waste, which is what I was looking for, and minimal sewing. So now I have 2 strips, and I have my 3. This could make 3 masks, but I'm only going to make 1 today. So I need 2 pieces of my fabric. So I have this 2, and I have my 2 strips for the side. These are with the fabric, which is very important because that gives you these selvage edges, so you don't have to hem them. So now we'll go over to the sewing machine. Okay, so now we have our 2 pieces of fabric. We're going to put them right sides together. Like I said before, if you're making these for a hospital, you want to use 2 different fabrics. If you're making it for home, it doesn't really matter so much. But I am going to show you how you really should be able to tell right side from wrong side. So I'm going to take my shorter sides, as you can see, like this side is a little bit longer than this side. So this side is my shorter side. I'm going to sew a seam at 1/4 inch, which is, I looked up, I don't know if they actually use millimeters, but it's like 6.35 millimeters. It doesn't sound right, does it? But I guess it is. So at 1/4 inch inseam, and I'm going to sew that one side, what's going to be the top of the mask. I'm going to do I'm going to do a gap. So I'll sew about 2 inches in. I'll do a little back stitch here just to make sure it's secure, although that seam's going to be sewn over again, so it's not that important. So about 2 inches in, which is what, 5 centimeters, and then back stitch right there, and then cut, and then I'm going to move over again and do another 2 inches on the other side. I'm going to back stitch right here so it seals it off, but you are going to sew over this again, so don't panic. And then right there, and then back stitch again, and then cut. Okay, now what I've done is I made a little hole, and this is going to be the top of the mask, so if you want to add a filter in there, you can slide it in whenever you want to. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to press this open with my fingers. Should have trimmed my nails before I did this, but anyway. Press this open with my fingers, so I have a nice little seam. I'm just doing a straight stitch, in case anybody was wondering. If you want them to be more secure, you can do like a smaller stitch length. I'm trying not to use any extra tools. If you wanted to press this with an iron, you could, but you don't need to. You can finger press that open. So then I'm going to do a zigzag stitch to secure this because it's going to be exposed when washed. So I'm going to just use a simple zigzag stitch, and I'm going to go over, back and forth. I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch, even though again this is going to be secured underneath the binding strips. And a little back stitch right there, just to make sure it's nice and tight. Since these are probably going to get washed a lot, whatever you do is extra to stitch it up is not bad, even if it's not completely necessary. I don't have a serger, so I can't serge these off, so a zigzag stitch is a nice way to do that if you don't have a serger. Okay, so now that's nice and firm. You still have your pocket. Losing my voice there. So when it closes, it'll be like that. That's going to be the top of the mask. You could wear it as the bottom if you really need to, but and if you're not going to be using a filter, it doesn't really matter. You don't even need to do that. Now I'm going to just sew the bottom shut. I'm going to go back to my regular stitch. And again, use a 1/4 inch inseam. Go back stitch there. Like I said, it's absolutely not completely necessary. Okay, and now comes probably what is the hardest part, this whole thing. Gonna turn it inside out, which is simple. And then I'm going to finger press this right here, over here, so you can see it's a little bulky right there. You could take it to an iron and press it, but you really don't need to. I'm gonna just finger press it. Use my fingers to push that down nice and flat. I have a roller here. I'm not gonna use it because I want you to see that you really don't need to. You can just finger press this open from either side. Very easy, very simple. And then go ahead and give it a nice press there too. And up top, you want to make sure that seam is as flat as you can get it, because what you're going to do now is the fun part, the hard part, I like to say. Now, I've just been estimating this because measuring it drives me crazy. So I put my opening at the bottom because I want my folds, so whatever is going to be your front, you really want your folds to be going down. So like if you're going to be wearing this a lot, so this is my front, that's my top, so like you don't get dust and debris in there. It's going to be stretched out mostly, but just in case, I don't know, it doesn't matter so much, I think, but in general, the mask I have, I think it's better for the folds to be going down. So here we go. Just going to start, this is the bottom, so I'm going to start here and just kind of eyeball that. I want it to be about a ½ inch, the fold, or an inch, ½ inch, the fold to be about a ½ inch. I'm really just eyeballing it. You're folding up about an inch of fabric every time you do this. You can mark it if you really want to, but you really don't need to. It just takes more time. I'm trying not to take a lot of time because I have a lot to make. I'm going to hold that. Now this fabric is very nice. So the better the fabric, the better it's going to function. If you're using a not so good fabric, that you picked up at Walmart or something that doesn't have a nice brand name on it, it may very well just not be very breathable. So you want something that's breathable. A good fabric is a good, important thing to have. I'm glad I have these that I don't really like anymore that I can use. So, when that's finished, it should measure about 3 inches, so it's there. Should be a little bit bigger, so I'm glad I'm happy it's a little bit over 3 inches. This mat is nice to have for measurement, and I'll need it later. So now that's done. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get my binding. I call these binding strips because that's what they would be when I quilt, but they're just strips. As you can see, I didn't press them. Since they're with the fabric, they've got that fold in the center. So go find that center fold. Since this is about 3 inches, you want the center to be at 1.5. So I'm going to go ahead and mark at 1.5. So this is 1.5 right here. So I'll put my center fold at 1.5, and I'm going to just use a little pencil and mark right there that's where I want my edge to be on my mask. So here's my mask, and I will put that right there. That makes your strips the same length on each side. So then I will go ahead and sew it. I'm going to pop that under there, and I'm just going to do a 1/4 inch again, and I'm going to sew right over my pins. So I'm going to make sure that they are not going to go, the heads aren't going to go underneath the foot. And I'm going to sew right over those so I don't have to take them out and I don't lose my folds. Here, I'll also do a back stitch. But like I said, you don't need to here. I will tell you when you need to do a back stitch, because you're going to be going over these seams again. But it's always helpful just to do a little back stitch. Okay, so now that's done, I can take those pins out over to the other side. Here we go. Again, fold in the middle, put that at my 1.5 inch mark. So I mark 1.5 inch down from there, and I'm going to put that on the side at the 1.5 at the edge, so that it'll be right in the center. Okay, and another 1/4 inch inseam. Pull my pin heads out. You can use binder clips, but then you have to take them off as you go, and that's kind of a pain. So I like pins better, because I can sew over them. And I hope if you're not familiar with sewing over pins, do it not too fast, just in case your needle hits it at the wrong angle. That would not be fun. A little back stitch there, and there we go. Okay, so out with the pins. Got a little extra fabric coming up, threads coming off here. As you see, I haven't trimmed anything, so if you see anything that's getting a little crazy, you can go ahead and just trim it off gently. Careful not to cut your fabric. Whew. Okay. Let's see. All right, now comes the fun part. I'm going to go ahead and sew these binding strips into the right position. So all I do is I fold them in half, and that finds my center point. And then I'm going to fold each side over, so that one to the center point and that one to the center point. Again, these do not need to be super exact. These are just face masks. This is not a work of art. I'm just trying to get them made as quickly as possible and throwing them under the sewing machine. I'm going to move my needle position just because of the way my sewing machine is set up. You can, I don't really know, not really been careful about my inseam here. I'm just kind of sewing over this because it's all going together. Kind of get close to the edge if you can, but not too close. I'm kind of sewing right down the middle actually. And it will wobbles around a bit as I'm going, but it still all stays together, so it's good. So I'm going to do a little back stitch here. This is where you want to do a back stitch for sure. 3 or 4 or 5 inches, 3 or 4 or 5 stitches. And then I have been having trouble with these bias edges getting stuck. And there we go. Now it goes. So as I'm going, I'm going to just fold it in. It's actually, once you get it started, it's actually not that hard. And sandwich it like that. And there it goes. And I'll keep going. I will fold it in and sandwich it. Very simple. This is the longest part right here, is when you're doing this. So fold it in and sandwich it. Let's hope my sewing machine doesn't break. Oh my gosh. During this tutorial, something is going on with my thing. Can you pause it? Alright, we're back, and I had a bobbin malfunction. I don't know what happened when I was rounding it, but anyway, so we have a new bobbin. We can keep going now. You don't want to turn this around like this as you come closer. You're going to go ahead and just keep going as I was saying before. You're going to tuck that in and keep sewing down. I usually do about, I guess, like, what is that, like 3 or 4 inches at a time? I don't know. What is that? 10 centimeters. We'll see. So then as you come around here, it's actually easier in this section because you already got it kind of folded over there. So you're just going to come over here. Just be careful. Listen to your machine. Don't go over too fast because that is a lot of fabric you're sewing over right there. A couple layers. So you don't want to go too fast. And then we'll finish this up to our other side. This is probably the most tedious part and will take you the most time. I haven't experimented with elastic or anything else, but I'm sure I can modify this to make it like that. But what I have heard is that elastic doesn't handle heavy washing. So these are getting washed a lot. Elastic is probably not the best thing to be using. Especially the high heat that they'll be using to kill germs. So we're down to our end. We're going to go and just finish that off with a light back stitch. The selvage edges don't do so well under the pressure foot, but we'll go ahead and we'll do a quick finishing stitch on that edge later. So now to the other side. If you're really fancy, you don't actually have to cut there. You can just keep going. So again, same thing. Fold it in half, and then fold to your center line. So that gives it a nice start, and it lets the machine. We can keep going. Then it's much easier. So fold it in half. Put that under your machine. Slide it under there. Let it go, and then start it off. Make sure it's catching. A little back stitch there, and then fold some more down so you're ready. There we go. Good. You just keep folding it and tucking it in. First time I did this, it was a pain in the butt, but now I kind of got the idea. you have deft fingers, you'll probably be much better at this than I am. I'm not very good at it. My fingers are not very deft, I would say. Is the best way to describe it. I did make a little boo-boo. I would have normally come at this from the other side, but I wasn't really paying attention. It doesn't really matter. Just going to make sure it's folded under there nicely. Make sure you don't sew over anything else. Okay. And on the home stretch here, almost finished. Everyone thank my husband for being my cameraman. I can't set up a rig. Alright. There we go. Last thing. Now I have one tiny step I've done to try and make sure that these edges are finished nicely. Not nicely, but so they won't come off. So you see you've got that salvage edge, so that shouldn't fray, although this one is fraying. Shouldn't fray. So I'm going to go ahead and just sew over these salvage edges, just like this. And I'll do a little back stitch over them, just to try and make sure that they're secured, so there's less chance of them fraying. I'll just pop the other one underneath there and do I like to call a chain stitch. Over top, over, just doing a little back stitch just to try and secure these so that they don't fall apart on you when you wash them. And there you go. That's it. So I'll cut that, and then I'll trim these, cut these apart. You can trim them up, trim off your threads or whatever, and make them as you don't. Like I said, this is really not about it being pretty. I just want it to be functional. I just happen to have pretty fabric, and I want it to be easy to sew, so I can make quite a few of them. So here we go. There's our finished mask. There's our pocket, and we've got ties. If you wanted to do it with elastic, you could probably just do a binding here and not do this long strap and then slide something through there. But I haven't gotten to that point myself yet, so I do have some elastic that I bought for craft projects, but I haven't dipped into it yet, so we'll see. That's it. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this is helpful and not too long.